Bop bop boom bop boom bop boom bop. Where in the world is Mancrick's wife? Hello and welcome to the second episode of the Vanilla Azeroth podcast. Last time we talked about a lot of WoW memories, and I'll probably talk about some more memories. It's hard to talk about vanilla and not talk about memories. But today I wanted to pick a topic that everyone talks about. If you just go on the forums, if you look at Reddit, look at all the YouTubers about WoW, and boy, an easy way to get clicks is to talk about class choice in classic WoW. Everyone's talking about what class they're going to pick. And it's a real problem, and I'll tell you why. And in vanilla, you had no idea about the classes aside from the one class that you played. And in fairness, how would you, right? I mean, the game is so time-consuming. People can say, oh, it's not that hard. But whatever it is time-consuming. It uses a lot of time. And so when you're playing one character. And when you're playing that one character, that's the only notion you're going to get of how to play. So, like, I remember playing an Undead Mage, which was my first character. And no one was, like, going around telling me that, like, oh, yeah, you're really, like, nuking stuff better than the shaman over there who's struggling with mana issues. Like, you don't know the advantages of your class. All you really know, and it's sad, it's kind of like life, all you really know is where your class suffers when you play it, because that's what you feel, right? You know when you keep getting killed, like I kept getting like stomped by mobs in Silverpine Valley at level 14 as a mage, and it was like, oh, I'm so sick of how squishy these mages are. Like, I don't like that I can't heal, and no one really told me that, like, well, you have to kite and blah 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 blah. So all I knew was, man, I want a character who can heal. And so the only way you really get to know a class is by playing it and then experiencing the strengths and the weaknesses. And if you're a pessimist like me, then usually you have to look at the weaknesses, and then you pick a class based on the weaknesses that they have. And that's true, like, all different classes have strengths and weaknesses. There is no magic class that is above all of that. So, like, one of the really cool things, I don't really like pets a whole lot, but one of the really cool things about a pet class is when you're running and you aggro shit and it starts coming after you, you can just set your pet to go and taunt whatever's chasing you for a second, and then set it back to passive, and then the thing will just attack your pet as you run, and your pet will probably live and you'll be fine, but you won't get dazed or slowed. So that's something that sounds totally minor and useless when picking a class. Like, why would I ever use that as a consideration? But in vanilla, you're going to be running around a hell of a lot. And so that is a pretty big consideration in quality of life and, like, what you're actually going to be doing in the game. Not every moment is, killing rag. Like, there's a lot of other parts of vanilla that are just running around. And so, and by that same token, lots of people pick druids or shaman because you get those travel forms, and it's like, oh, this will speed things up a lot. And that's not an unfair consideration when picking a class in vanilla. But I want to talk about something else first. The issue of picking a class is exacerbated by the fact that vanilla is a game in such rich contradistinction that at different level groups, there will be different levels of power for each class. And what I mean by that is, for instance, taking my first example, when I was playing the mage, a mage during the first, let's say 20 levels is comparatively weak to other casters. A mage doesn't really start to shine until a little later in the game, or perhaps a better way to put it is, it would take a little more skill to play a mage. Whereas after playing a mage, I was like, screw this, I just want something that can heal. And so I started a priest. And you know what? I don't know if they were trying to encourage people to play clerics after EverQuest's legacy, but man, playing a priest for the first 20 levels, you're laughing. I mean, Smite is freaking good, and people laugh at you if you say, Smite is good, but in those first 20 levels, Smite is amazing. Smite is really good. So playing a priest in those first 20 levels, man, it's powerful. It's amazing. And so it's usually then not until you get later in the game and you really start to struggle as a priest killing stuff solo, then, well, I mean to say struggle like comparatively to a mage, then it's like, oh, well, it's too late. I've already invested this time in the priest. So it really is tough to pick a class because you need to know what parts of the game you want to enjoy. Because every class you pick, no matter what class you pick, if you just pick a class and stick with it until the end, there will be enjoyable parts. Even if you hate like your main role, there'll be 1,000 fun things that you can do with each class at some point in the game. Also, I mean, there are some classes that shine so much during some parts of the games that people will play them just for that. You know, if you want to play a paladin between, 30 and 50, you are just going to dominate. They're so good mid-game. They're so overpowered mid-game. At the end of the game, they struggle a bit. Pache Esfand. But, during that mid-game, paladins are amazing. So if you just want to, sit there and kill Horde at Scarlet Monastery, then by all means play a paladin and just sit at 50. Like, you'll be fine for the most part. So it just depends on what you want to do in the game. And there's a lot to do in vanilla World of Warcraft. People don't often realize that. So you have to decide what you really want to do. Do you want to raid? Do you want to just gank people? Which, believe it or not, there's a lot of people who just want to gank people. Ask Gordo from Light's Hope or whatever it was called before. Do you want to help your friends? There's a lot of people in vanilla who you get really popular, and a lot of people like you, and they'll probably even bring you on raids if you just go around helping people. Because there's a lot of quests that need help. If a warlock needs help with their mount quest, or paladin with their mount quest, or a lot of people need help for epic quests, you will be a hero of gaming, and it might not be the same as sitting there in your tier 3 in glory, but to someone in their mom's basement, you're going to be a hero for helping them out get this or that. So maybe you want to pick a support class, maybe you want to play druid just so that you can go around and help everyone a little bit with everything. And ultimately, I will say, if you can't pick a class, you probably want to choose druid, because druid's a good class for altaholics like me, because you never do anything amazing, but you kind of do everything good. You're kind of 80% good at every class role, and so it's tough because in vanilla everything's about like finally picking that one role, and then once you're in the raid, this is if you care about raiding, which most of you do. In raids, you're only going to be hitting a few buttons, so you have to specialize into those few buttons. But, Druid's the exact opposite of that. Druid is like the antidote to a raid spec. It's just, you can do whatever. You can play so much versatility, but again, you'll never be the best at being a rogue or being a warrior. You just have to live with that. But it's kind of fun to be all four. So again, if you're indecisive, pick a druid. Well, what other things do you have to consider? So there's the quality of life things to consider, like movement speed. Mage would be really great for portals. It's going to help you a lot. Hunter, if you're just wanting to get to 60 quick, oh man, Hunter is going to be your favorite class. But there's other things to consider. So I was just coming up with a list of kind of fun things that people did in vanilla, and different fun things that you might want to do. If you want to play a game for fun, that is, then you're probably not a min-maxer. But fun things you can do in vanilla. So I played a priest for the most part in vanilla to level 53 before Burning Crusade dropped. And priest, in those later levels where it's tougher to grind, you're basically like killing undead stuff and like plague lands and places like that to level. But when you just want to have fun, mind control is the most amazing spell. Mind Control is so much fun as a priest. And Mind Control can actually be quite useful. People completely underestimate Mind Control. So there are moments where tanks go AFK in dungeons, and a priest can actually mind control if there's a pack of 2 or 3 mobs. A priest can actually mind control one, someone might CC the other, and then the priest will just attack the remaining mob with the mind-controlled mob. And you can do that for a surprising amount of time, just clearing trash in a dungeon. And that's pretty incredible that priests can do that. If you want to be a dick, you can go out and gank people with mind control. You can walk people off boats, you can walk them off towers, you can walk them off places in Thousand Needles, so there's all sorts of fun things you can do with a priest in vanilla. They probably have fixed all of, I hate the term fixed. Probably the BFA client that we'll be using in Classic won't let you do any of the fun stuff that we enjoyed in vanilla, but if it does, then those are fun things you can do with a priest. So mind control's another fun part of a priest. You also have a lot of fun with Power Word Shield. That's a really fun spell, just immediately cutting off damage. And I'll give you an example. Again, people are going to be like, this guy is such a dick. Yeah, it's probably true. During vanilla one time, someone just kept bitching about my healing skills or whatever in a dungeon. So I just went and aggroed a group of mobs or a couple groups of mobs, and then power word shielded and ran out of the instance and watched all the mobs just train and kill them all. So again, fun stuff you get to do as a priest, if you want to be a dick. So again, none of that is sitting there spamming greater heal, in a raid group, but that's stuff that you can actually do from day to day that's fun. As a priest. It's also fun to just heal and help people. As a priest, if you want to listen to your better angels, there are so many moments where the priest gets to be the hero, because you're questing somewhere, you're in Ashen Vale and someone's pulled too many invisible night elves, and they're running to the road and they're about to die, and then you're the one who casts Power Word Shield, and you're the one who heals them up, and you just save them a corpse run in a contested zone, and they love you. If you're in like a low-level city, and everyone's still struggling not to die, you can be the one casting Power Word or fort buffs on them, and people are like, oh my goodness, thank you for that, and it actually does make a difference to get fortitude. So that is also a way to feel good about yourself and enjoy playing the game, to consider, just being a class that can buff. It's kind of cool to be a shaman and have all these totems and stuff like that, but you'll never feel that experience of buffing people because you're not going to group up with someone and drop a totem. So your buffs are great, but they're very situational. You have to be in a group to enjoy them. So consider those things when you're playing a class as well. If you want to just kind of screw around with everything, then by all means play a druid or a rogue. Druids can take aquatic form, sit at the bottom of that lake in Red Ridge, and when all the Alliance go down to get their necklace for that quest, you just cast Entangling Roots and watch the people drown. And that can be a lot of fun if you're a jerk, or you can just prowl around and then ravage people when they're sitting to drink. Or if you're a rogue, you can just sit there backstabbing people, or ganking lobies when they're sitting down, or just walking around. And so that's a lot of fun too. So it depends on really what you want to do in vanilla that will choose your class. But I do recommend playing every class to at least 25. If you're like, no, I want to do everything on one class. Well, then you probably have to reach at least that level. Or if you only care about 60, which most of you do, then just go on one of those gaming forums or that allows you an instant 60 character, and then suit up and then play some BGs, or try doing a little bit of PvE stuff, and yeah, you will get a pretty quick flavor of it. What a paladin feels like at 60 is not at all what a paladin feels like in 1 to 25. So it's fair to do that as well, because the classes change so much over the levels. In terms of other fun things to go into playing vanilla WoW and choosing your class, important basic questions are like, do I want a pet class or not? How do I want my damage? That's another thing. A lot of people just think of, well, what's on the top damage meters? But in Vanilla WoW, it really matters how that damage occurs, especially when you're on one-on-one fights with people, right? So people will talk about, well, what's an example? A shaman. They'll be like, well, a shaman can't do as much damage as a warlock can, and I've played lots of shamans and warlocks. Well, the difference between a shaman and a warlock's damage is that, an elemental shaman has a shit ton of burst. They can do big chunks of damage really quick, and that's usually what can be deadly. And warlocks are by no means weak. I mean, warlocks are an amazing class. That's probably what I'm going to main in vanilla. But the way they do damage is incrementally. And so, I mean, aside from giant shadow bolt crits at the end of the game. But for the most part, it's going to be, dots over time. So how you do damage is going to be really important too. If you just want to immediately shock and attack people, then, you want a class like Shaman, or you want Rogue, where you're going to just do a huge amount of burst damage right away. And then, if they survive, you're kind of screwed, but it depends. Like, people have different play styles, and they like to play in different ways. If you want to play a class where you just survive forever and annoy the shit out of anyone who tries to gank you, play a paladin. Paladins have like 3 lives, as it's said, and it's accurate. Like, it's really hard to gank a paladin. You have to invest a lot of time and effort. So if you just want people to leave you alone while you play your game, pick a paladin. You can just know it. People will get so tired trying to kill you, they'll just leave you alone because it's not fun anymore. Paladins, they're not these damage heroes like some people make them out to be, but you can do a lot of fun, annoying things. You can cast Repentance on someone, or just Hammer of Justice stun people. It just annoys the hell out of them being stunned. And so, yeah, it just depends on how you like to do your damage. Do you care about things like stuns, or do you just want to do the maximum amount of damage? Do you want to do physical or caster damage? Because again, at different parts of the game, if you're a physical DPS, it's like, oh man, you will own this. You are at the top of your world. And then in other parts of the game or other patches, it's like, oh man, like casters are the heroes. So it's tough. You have to pick what you want, because otherwise, you'll reach that point where suddenly you're not as good anymore, or an area you're not as good anymore, and then it's like, do you have the perseverance to keep going with it or not? So just different things to consider when you're playing classes. Other fun stuff, other fun classes, a hunter. Again, if you just want to get to play quick and you want a class that's not going to be weak, by all means pick a hunter, especially if you don't care about raiding. Pick a hunter, because hunters are amazing at PvP and especially world PvP. And hunters have a lot of fun stuff they can do. Another fun thing you can do as a hunter is tame like a level 1 beast and use Eyes of the Beast and just walk it around in a noob zone. And as everyone's just frantically killing those wolves in Northshire, one of them's going to tag your pet, and then you can just shoot him. So that's fun too. Hunters can do all sorts of fun, crazy stuff with their pets. And they have a lot of neat, weird abilities that other classes don't have. So, yeah, just consider all the fun stuff you can do with your class as well when you pick a class. And if you want to raid, then you already know what class you want, because you've been salivating over that tier 3 since you were 12, and that's what you want. So go ahead and try and get all that and go for it if you want. But for the rest of us, there's a lot of other fun things to consider when you're playing a class, and so take that into consideration. The other thing I'd advise you to do is just watch a lot of videos on YouTube. You get to see other people play the class, and usually that's going to impress you enough to realize, oh man, you actually can be good at this class. Had I just watched more mage videos early on, I would have been like, oh, wow, mages can stomp people. Like, this is an amazing class. But I didn't. So, it's just each class can be great and awesome on its own. You just need to have that inspiration. And sometimes, just quite frankly, you don't know how to play a class. That's happened to me quite a bit. And it's not until you watch those videos that you realize, oh, that's how druids kill people. You can't just do one of the jobs. You have to do all four of them at once. Oh, okay. So, yeah, you get inspiration from seeing other people play. And quite often in original vanilla, the way people chose their class was they were running through Hillsbrad one day, and then they just got decimated by an Alliance character of a certain class, and they were so thoroughly impressed that they thought, I'm going to level that class, and that's how I'm going to roll. So, yeah, lots of different ways to choose your class, and there's no real wrong choice. The only wrong choice is if you don't consider what you want to do in the game and what you realistically will do in the game, what you have time to do in the game, and pick a class that way. So, yeah, pick a class based on what you can do and what you want to do, and you won't miss. All right, thanks for listening, guys. Bye.